Hey, everybody. It looks like I'm live. Yep. Well, what do you think, guys? I'm trying a little new deal here. We're doing a little happy hour discussion, happy hour huddle. So you got to have a cocktail. It's definitely happy hour. We're gonna have a little dialogue because I'll tell you, I think some of the most interesting discussions have happened in the evening after a long day of dog training with friends and colleagues and clients talking about kind of what on during the day or during the week or over the weekend at a test or a field trial. The discussion that I've had recently and that I want to share with you is really based on a big key in a basics program. So you wonder sometimes when you've got dogs with a lot of desire and they like to retrieve, why do you have to go through the process of going through a force program? Well, when you start adding rules to retrieving, I mean, they all love to chase a bird. I mean, if we didn't teach them to come back and deliver, they'd chase a bird and they'd pick it up and they'd eat it, just like my puppy did the first time he saw a crippled duck. And he was able to chase it down, and it took 5 of us to wrangle him before he ate the duck. Well, that's what a retriever's doing. They're retrieving it to eat it. The first rule is you got to come back. But it really goes on and on from there. You got to sit on a whistle. You can't cheat. You got to take a cast. You got to go for the bird you're told for. I mean, it's endless, really, before you get a dog to get to an advanced stage. And I'm telling you right now, no matter how much desire to retrieve, they're going to say, wait a minute, what are these rules all about? Well, let's take it back a few steps, because what's going to happen, and it may not be a dog refusing to go at all, but they're going to naturally kind of resist the idea that there's rules to this whole thing. It's going to happen. You know, whether or not they actually quit, but they may quit trying. They may say, I'm going to do it under my terms, not your terms, which is inevitable to some degree. So why wait? Let's create the atmosphere of rules from day one. Not from day one, but early in basics. The first thing I do is when I start doing force fetch, well, I guess the original deal is they got to pick up an object on command. But once we get rolling a little further and they run to a pile of bumpers, for example, well, I don't let them play with the bumpers. They got to pick one up and come back. The first rule is that you got to turn around and come back right away. And you start to enforce, you can't sit there and dawdle and hover over the pile of bumpers or a bumper or a bird, and you got to turn and come straight in. Well, oftentimes you may make a correction for not coming in or for shopping. And shopping is simply the matter of going and, oh, I like this bumper, maybe I'll pick that one up, and so it's just an undisciplined behavior, or an uneducated behavior is probably the better term at that point, because there's all these deals to choose from. And you say here, and you may correct on a here. The correction may be with a leash and a pinch collar, but you say here, and all of a sudden now they come in without the bumper. And now you say fetch. And they may say, if you're going to make me come in immediately, or if you're going to make me pick up the first bumper I come to, well, then maybe I'm just not going to pick one of these up, because this isn't so much fun. Let's just shoot a gun and go out in the field and do all the fun stuff. But this stuff, that's kind of what goes on. You know, Rex was brilliant. Rex Carr was the guy that really developed the modern program that's been used for 50 years. and evolved in a good way. I'd like to think that I was a big part of the evolution of that. But what Rex did is that he developed solutions before you had the problems. You create the scenario of a rule around retrieving, and you create the atmosphere of something you have to do. And then when I'm maybe not going to retrieve, or I'm going to resist the idea that there's stipulations to this whole thing, and then I'm just not going to do it until you, the handler, the owner, says, okay, you don't have to behave anymore. You don't have to be steady. Well, steady, that's one big rule. You don't have to come back right away. And now they start changing your standards by their behavior, their negative response to the rules. And then now you start adapting the rules. And pretty quickly, the dog is now training the handler or the owner or the trainer. And once that becomes a pattern, well, anytime negative behavior changes your behavior and gets rewarded, well, now that negative behavior gets reinforced, whether it's creeping, noise, cheating, poor sits, endless. It's endless. So why am I ranting about this a little bit? Well, I'm ranting about it because early on in a basics program, and I've got our little puppy, Robin's had my trusty assistant and wife, and has had bench bred golden retrievers her whole life. So now we've got an experiment going. We've got a cool little dog named Merlin who now he likes to retrieve because I saw his sire. What was his sire's name, honey? What is his sire's name? Merlin's daddy? Well, Robin's not paying attention. I'll try to get her. I'll try to get her attention here in a second. Robin's. Oh, what is? Huh? Joker. I'm sorry. Joker. Super cool dog. I saw him at a workshop. Bench champion. But this dog had a lot of zip. So I said, if we're going to get another show dog, I want one with some spunk. Well, I think we got it. So now I'm putting Merlin through a form of basics. We've done some light collar conditioning, and now we're force fetching him. Boy, that force fetch can be a challenging deal. Merlin says, I like to go out and get it, but what's this I have to do it thing? And he's protesting that. Well, that's the beginning of adding the rules. And now it's the beginning of teaching them to respond to pressure to reinforce the rules. I've showed him the act of holding it. He's already likes to retrieve. And when I kind of said fetch and I pinched his lips a little bit, put the bumper in his mouth, told him he was good, I started to identify the behavior I'm looking for because I'm not trying to use pressure to teach. I'm trying to use it to reinforce what's been taught. And then and maybe in the beginning of this, the most important thing is to teach these dogs how to productively respond to pressure. Pressure takes on a lot of forms. Now you think of electronic collar pressure, e-collar pressure, of course, that's a common one. Maybe a little pinch collar or choke collar, but even mental pressure, even the pressure of just being firm, the pressure of expectations, of a challenge, because you want them to take it serious, not be afraid of it, understand the non-negotiable rules. You got to go, you got to stop, and you got to come. The big three. And then you teach them how to respond to a correction to reinforce those behaviors. And you try to teach them that, and what you want to do is you don't want that to dampen their enthusiasm of retrieving. Now, there may be a time where they put up a protest and say, I'm not doing this. I said, oh, yeah, these are the rules. You're going to do this. And I'm going to tell you, when a dog is properly put through you got a fetch program, pile program and you've had some challenges, you've had some protests that you've said, no, no, you're going to do this. Once they wave that flag and say, all right, I got it. I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to just throw a temper tantrum. That's when I have seen dogs' desire go through the roof. That's when you've removed the doubt of whether or not we're going to do this under all our circumstances. And then it's my job as a good trainer to make the challenges doable, not overwhelming, that there's enough positive reinforcement along the way and encouragement. But it takes all the above for this to kind of play out. And it starts from square one. So the title of tonight was Adding Rules to Retrieving. And like I said before, the more complex you get in the process, the more rules there are. And so when you start to expose these young dogs to the rules along the way, and then maybe you hit some hiccups, which you expect to do, and you work through it. You tell them, no, you're going to still go. And then when you go, I'm going to be your best friend. I'm going to reward you. And then I'm going to show you that you can deal with those challenges. Now they start to develop that positive response, just like we did, just like your kids do, just like this isn't that different than the challenges we all face and things we sometimes do that we at first didn't really feel like doing. So this is really the philosophy of a good basics program. It's not just checking off the steps of sitting on a whistle. Yeah, you've got to do all those things, but those are the rules. And when the rules get to the point where a dog says, I ain't doing it, you go pick it up and you teach them, no, no, you're going to do this. And then the minute you do it and you give me that little extra effort, now I'm going to reward effort because really that's what you're doing. You're learning to identify a dog trying a little harder than they were willing to try and then rewarding it. Now you start molding. It's almost like, it feels like a piece of pottery that you're trying to create this compliant, wonderful teammate that can deal with challenges, that can handle a little mental stress, which is going to happen when you show all the things that you're going to want them to do. That's a little harder than just playing games. And you start to develop a rapport and a relationship based on a disciplined leader, which is us, a co-pilot, which is them, and a trust factor, a consistency of what the rules are. See, dogs don't resent high standards. They resent the standards that fluctuate, that you say, you can do it this way one day, but tomorrow you don't have to. And now you get fed up and now you change the rules. That's where things start to get sticky. So I don't know. I really want to share with you the whole principles behind what a good basics program is and what these early stages are. Because there could be a lot of different ways you can get to the end. The steps that I follow, well, they're the ones I've been taught, and they're tested over time. But somebody thought outside the box that developed that, and maybe you're the next person that's going to think outside the box. But at the end of the day, you've got to realize, what does the final product need to look like? And it's that enthusiastic, and again, not out of enthusiasm, just out of like fun and games. It's an enthusiastic dog or handler that appreciates what the challenges of the expectations, but is emboldened by it. And I can only try to convey to you how exciting it is to watch a dog that has developed that mental maturity, that can deal with adversity, a challenge, and doesn't overreact, but is willing to be a part of the team because a great basics program makes maybe a soft dog a little more resilient and maybe a stubborn-ish dog, which again, stubbornness can turn into perseverance. It's a wonderful trait. But a soft dog becomes a little more emboldened. You know what? I'm afraid of what's out there. No, I'm going to show you it. I'm going to make you do it. I'm going to reward you when you try. And now you get that sensitive dog, because we used to think sensitivity was like a bad trait. No, it's a wonderful trait when nurtured properly and combined with desire. And then you've got that, then we'd say they're hard-headed. Well, what does that mean? Well, maybe they're so driven that the rules don't really apply to them, or maybe they don't worry about them enough. So you try to make that dog a little bit more aware of, hey, there's two of us here, not just you. And you do it over time and throughout a basics program, and you do it in a sequential, step-by-step manner, or brick by brick, as some people say. And now you've got a real partner that you can achieve the most that dog's capable of. Because when I talk about basics, this isn't about talent. This is about developing a foundation for advanced learning and problem solving that will enable you to get the most out of the dog that's sitting next to you. I just want you to dwell on that a little bit. Well, okay. Robin just gave me a little update. Yeah, and I'll pop in with some updates of this little Merlin who I'm putting through some of the early stages of basics. And I'm telling you right now, it's going to be a challenge for me, because I guess when I've trained the majority of the dogs in today's world are modern Labrador retrievers, which the evolution of temperament and talent has made them a little bit more foolproof to train. And sometimes you realize, am I that good a trainer, or is this dog just that easy? Well, some of these, like Merlin, for example, and I embrace the challenge of working with different breeds and different temperaments, because it's really, that's exactly what it is, a challenge. I'm going to have to be a little better dog trainer, and I'm going to have to read, and I'm going to have to adapt. And I'm not necessarily going to make him fit into a cookie cutter mold, but I know where I need to get to. And it's my job to get some hands-on approach. He's our house dog. He is a wonderful, and he's very precocious and self-confident. And maybe he's going to resist the rules for a while. So we'll see where it goes. And I'll share some of that with you. And I hope, well, maybe you like this discussion, because it's these kinds of discussions that develop a relationship with people I work with and colleagues, and hopefully you. And so thank you very much for joining me tonight. I was talking so much I didn't get to enjoy much of my happy hour drink. But we'll catch up on that. Well, thanks again. This is something we'd like to do. I'd love your feedback on it. And have a great evening. And we'll talk soon. All right. Good night.